that note of what Nicole just said, the one OHDSI update that I did miss was the models, right? That they did a presentation on yesterday, I believe, like Nicole said. It's the HDSI packages. So they're working on a lot of this right now. You can find it here at our news, and then they actually have a working group that is working all of this. So if you guys have an interest, please join the working group. Please go visit the community webpage and get this information from there. And I know Nicole will connect with you a ton. So how do you guys like these calls so far? Are you guys, have they been informative? Have they been giving you guys fun? I mean, like Ian, you're enjoying it during your quarantine, right? You like seeing us, you like
Sure.
talking to
Yeah.
us. Yes, yes.
That's my life. Such I like today.
So I do want to say a big thank you to the community volunteers who actually do all of the back end work in order to get these calls to run as smoothly as they do, as well as getting all the presenters, getting all the decks, the recordings, and then them all updated into the OHDSI website. So first off, there's Jing, who is help manage and coordinating a lot of this stuff. There's Catherine from the University of South Australia, who's helping, and she helped organize a few of them already. And then we also have Xialing, who's also helped. I think this one she organized. And then we have Grace from the University of Hong Kong, who I think helped organize a couple of the ones before. And then Jordan, who has helped organize quite a few of these as well. So these are the faces and the people that are actually behind all of these community calls and any of the Asia Pacific coordination that's going on. So I want to give a big round of applause to all these folks who helped to make these meetings, as well as getting all the information, all the agenda, all of the topics, and all the speakers even to join us. So thank you, thank you, thank you very much for all of your help. Okay. All right, the next thing I want to go into is actually the changes. So like I mentioned before, there was a meeting in March, at the end of March, from the CDM group, where they met, and they have decided to basically put a hold, really obsolete V6. But from V6, they found that there are stuff that needs to be done before we create a new V6. And those changes are going into what we call V5.4. Is this big enough for everybody to see, or should I make it bigger? Probably make it bigger. And these are all the changes that you see. Now, how do you get to these? It's quite, if you have the OHDSI teams, you can go to the common data model. And in the general here, one of these threads, I can't reply which one of these days were, but it does take you to the list where they are. And then it'll be in their working group notebook. I can post this as well on this chat. But from that meeting in March, they basically come up with, this is the list of changes that they want to put into 5.4. We are trying to get the approval from all, approval or more of communication of these changes out to the various groups this quarter. And then later on in Q3, all of this will be released to the developers. And then from there, so that they can test it out, make sure everything works. And then from there, they will release it into the general public. So these are all the changes that the CDM working group is looking at making this year. So what I wanted to do on this call is to talk to everybody about them and get feedback if there is any, like whether or not you agree, you have concerns, then I can take that back to the CDM working group, okay? So the first one is to modify the character limit of the UDI field in the device exposure. That's not a major change. It's just, again, making sure the character limit, because right now I think it's too big. So we're shrinking it down so that for development, it doesn't cause much of an issue. The one that gets debated a lot is this gender concept ID. when we first worked on it during Themis, we decided that the gender concept ID would actually store your gender at birth, right? And if you ended up changing your gender later on in life, then that would actually be an observation. But the problem is the field name still said gender, and that was confusing to people. So that's why what they are looking at changing is, instead of saying gender concept ID, it will say sex concept ID, which is more tied to when you were born. Now putting your gender in, that will still go into the observation table. Okay. Please stop me if you guys have any questions, okay? Then we have the adding a procedure status concept ID to the procedure occurrence table. So very similar to the condition occurrence table, there is a status concept ID, right? So exactly similar here, they're going to add a procedure status concept ID to the procedure occurrence table. Now this one is actually making the location table international. As most of you guys are aware, oh, it's one of these. I clicked on too many of these. As you are aware, this is the GitHub issue here. That, you know, right now if you look at the CDM table, it has city, state, zip, right? And then I think county and country, right? That's not international. So what they want to do is modify this to make it international, so that you can see this is what the current table looks like, right? They're going to modify it so that it becomes more international. If you want to read through all this thread, feel free, because at the bottom it will tell you what they are looking at updating it to look like. Okay, so that's what they're looking at doing. The other one is adding the unit concept ID to devices. So again, in the device table. So you can click on each one of these and it'll tell you basically why they're doing it, the proposal here as to why, as well as what the use case is. As you can see here, it talks about infant blood transfusions are given in milliliters, right? Adults are given in units, with 1 unit of red blood cell equaling 250 milliliters. So having 2 different unit of quantities in the device table would cause confusion without adding in concept ID, okay? So that's the proposal that they're talking about. Again, if you guys have any questions, let me know. The next one, it's the measure source concept ID into the measurement table. If you look, there is no source concept ID right now for the unit of measure. So what they want to do is add that. They want to add the dose unit source value to the drug exposure table. Again, there is no such thing right now in the drug exposure table, so they want to add that. This is adding the metadata and value as a number to the metadata table. For those who use the metadata table, I don't know how many of you guys actually use the metadata table, or how many of you actually know there's a metadata table, because it's not as common. Adding the source value to the observation. So in observation, actually Chan suggested this. So in the measurement, there's a source. In the measurement, the source value can be stored in this table. So he proposed adding it, right? That's what it is. So again, you can go through all of these and you can read through all that if you want. The next one is change CDM version in CDM to be numeric and use a concept ID to represent the version. This is really for techie people, right? So that we are able to link them a lot better using a primary key. Yes, somebody, Silva, what's up? Your hand's up. Put his hand down.
Oh, sorry. That was for one of your earlier questions here. Sorry.
Okay. Well, did you have an earlier question you still want to ask, or?
No. I think you asked a question like, who knows there's a metadata table? So I just raised my hand. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. I'm glad somebody knows that table. Yes. The death date to the persons. So along with the death table. So they want to add the death table. It's in V6, but now they want to put it into V5.4. This one, there was a big discussion back and forth, but this ends up being, because right now in 5.3, right, we have the death information. What was the argument here? The argument was they wanted a death date, and that they were going to get rid of the death table, and put everything in condition. And we said you can't, because we don't always know why somebody died, right? So they wanted to 100% remove the death table, but because people wanted to know the death date and be able to look at the death date under the person. So this is like a compromise between 6.0 and 5.3, where we put the death date along and then still keep the death table. Okay, it was a compromise between the two. These are this came from the, if anyone realized this comes from the oncology extension, but they want to add it, not just the oncology extension, but here, because a lot of measurements actually have, a lot of different other diseases have episodes as well, and then how to tie all the different events into an episode. So that's why they wanted to bring that into 5.3 as a standard table and not an extension anymore. Okay. So then you have, this is just a rename from a convention wise, and it makes more sense because you put visit detail first instead of parent visit detail. And then this is adding the procedure end date time to procedure table. This is for the reason of a lot of some of the procedures nowadays, especially like for COVID-19, was the discussion here, where you do want to know when a procedure ended. Not just the date, but the date time. But the problem is we already have a date in there, but not a date time. So they were trying to keep it consistent and not get rid of the date because that's required, but just adding the date time so that everything was consistent. Because I believe I think we decided against putting in the start date time. They just wanted the end date time. So that was the minor difference between the procedure one. So these are all the changes. Like I said, they will go into effect later on this year with developers starting to utilize them and play with them in Q3. We are working on writing up all of the specifications for them, adding them to the wiki, and all that fun stuff. So if anybody has an interest in joining the development team, there's a development subgroup here. Where they are looking at actually implementing a lot of these changes in Q3. So if you guys have an interest in working with them, you can come into this working group. They meet, I believe, you can see every second Wednesday of the month. So anyone got any questions? Let's see if this works. If I put the link here, I don't know if you guys can get to it. You may have to have access to the CDM working group, but I'm not 100% sure. Of course, my Teams has decided to stop working. That is actually the link to the this document. Anyone got any questions? You guys all good with all the changes? You just no debates?
Thank you for summarizing. It's great.
Cool. I can go back to Claire and says, no objections on this side of the world? Okay. But that's all we have, unless somebody else has something they want to talk about or bring up. No? Well, thank you, everybody, for joining. Looking forward to seeing you guys again in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, we are actually going to do 3 mini tutorials. We haven't decided on exactly what those tutorials are, but there will be 3 mini tutorials on either OHDSI tools or OHDSI analytics or OHDSI packages or OHDSI ETLs, whatever they may be. But there will be 3 mini tutorials that we will have folks discuss with you guys and showcase. Okay? So see you guys in 3 weeks, or 2 weeks. Sorry, I said 3, 2. See you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you. You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank